This is Andy B, not underground, but at Torch Trust on Torchway. I love that. Torchway near Market Harborough. Torch Trust is a great, great family of people. We're loving it being here. And we've got some fantastic guests across today. We've had a number already and we have more yet, so don't go away. We're here till I think about 5-ish until they kick us out and lock the doors. We'll keep going. And so I've got another guest in front of me right now. So can you just start and just tell us what your name is and why are you at Torch Trust House or Touch House for today?
Oh, well, I'm Gordon Temple, and I worked here. Indeed, I was involved in getting this place built. I served for 16 years as the chief executive of Torch Trust and relocated it to these premises in 2004. So it's been here 20 years. I'm still coming here, though I'm retired. I've been here for a coffee morning to share with good friends, old and new.
Fab. So you ran Torch Trust for a while. I was told this was purpose built. So that was something that you did. Was that kind of a legacy that you were really happy that you were involved in? Or was it sort of happening anyway? What was your part in that?
Oh, well, I came, God called me to come and serve at Torch Trust back in 2002.
That little break there. We had some. So we've rebooted the laptop. I am back here again with my guest talking about Torch Trust because we're talking about bits and pieces. Where did we get to before I had to then try and fix the computer?
You'll have to remind me. I'm sorry.
I think we're talking about some of the changes that we made. The echo's gone. That's good. Thank you to whoever's listening, telling me the echo's gone. What were we talking about? It was you changed all the technology, moving here,
wasn't it? Yes, moving to this place, which was a tremendous privilege and a tremendous blessing. You asked how I got into this, really, and that actually goes back a long way because I, as a youngster, I was very interested in the sort of technology we're using, except there weren't computers then, and I was very interested in the audio stuff, and I was going to a church and. Without keeping the story short, a link between our church and the Torch Trust in its early years grew up, particularly amongst young people. And I volunteered to help get a recording studio set up for Torch Trust where they could start doing Christian books and magazines in an audio form that blind people could access. And there was a blind young woman called Penny who was all set to do this, but she needed a recording studio that she could operate without sight. And I thought, I think I can do that. And so I spent a chunk of my first university vacation. I was studying electronics that time, and I could get that going, and I did. I got her up and running so that she could run this little recording studio as a blind person, and that led on to all sorts of things like my wife was also she wasn't my wife then, but she became my wife from that encounter, and we carried on associating with Torch as volunteers through most of my working life and family life and all the rest of it, until really God sort of stopped us in our tracks, sort of 2001, and by 2002 I got a real clear sense that God was calling me in an unambiguous way that I couldn't resist to come and lead Torch Trust at that point. So that's how I got sucked into it, in short.
Fab, I love the fact you set up a studio and you thought, oh great, we're going to set up a studio and do this and that, and then all of a sudden someone says, great, can we have it for people who can't see a thing? How, I don't necessarily need the details as such, but how did you then, I suppose, pivot what you were doing into a slightly different way in order to set up a studio, which is complicated enough, but then making it suitable for somebody who can't see where the little mouse thing is going to go in modern parlance? How did you sort of set about helping her?
Fortunately, we didn't have mice and screens to interact with at that point. Yeah. So, but I mean, by doing everything in sort of preset ways, where it was just choosing the right button for the right situation. So it was like pre-programming on a computer and putting it on the function keys. You could go straight to the right settings for that. But of course, it was much more exciting than that because it was recording onto tape recorder, reels of tape. So you could get in a bit of a mess with that. By and large, we didn't look to a blind person to do some of the editing where you snip up the tape and stick it back together again. But we had the help of a BBC producer who in his spare time gave some help, and I continued to come back whenever I had a break from university, come back and help out as well. So we were able to make it all work together with that.
One of the things that I've loved about sort of a similar thread through the stories, one is cake being amazing, which by the way is, but the other one, it's family, but it's more than that. I think it's about people who have even the smallest engagement with Torch to start with, then say, but I want to give more or do more or help more. And that seems to be coming through people that I've interviewed today. It's just that desire, even with the smallest of initial engagements, of I want to do more, and then they're here for 40 or 50 or even 60 years, which is saying something about the community as a whole.
Yes. I mean, it's occupied me for over 50 years, one way or another. And so it actually, the founders, Ron and Stella Heath, very much started this as an extension of family. They felt they responded to a blind young woman coming to a church youth group, who in turn became a Christian. And they looked around for what they could give her to help her in her Christian journey, what there was there for her to read and so forth, and found that there really wasn't very much that was suitable. Only things in Braille were sort of heavyweight theological tomes, but they started to respond to that and find resources for those young blind people. It turned it from one into a crowd, and so then they started doing things in their own home, and then they needed a bigger house, and then finally they bought something not in their own name but in the name of Torch Trust, and people came and lived and worked together. Some of them blind, some of them sighted, all with that sense that God had drawn them together. And it did have this sort of extended family dynamic about it. It was Christian community, but family was probably as good a word you could find to describe it. We had fun together, we did stuff together, we solved problems together. It was such an attractive expression of Christian life, that as a young person who'd grown up in a rather somber, monochrome church environment, suddenly this was Technicolor Christianity. It was real. It was dynamic. They got together each morning, opened the post together, see what God had sent. They prayed together for what they needed, and whether God provided the money or a new contact or a new place to go or a new a partnership to pursue. That was all happening in that very dynamic way, with prayer being answered, in front of the team as they went forward. And that was a joy for me as a student in London to get down to the centre from whenever I could, to be part of that. That was such an attractive, expression of being Christian.
That explains a lot, actually, of the family. If it started as a family, most things tend not to skew that far away from their origins. And if it began as family, that would make sense as to why it's still family today. It's a beautiful place to spend some time. I'm going to let you carry on with your day. And thank you for your time. It's been a privilege speaking to you.
Rated 5 stars by Sorted Magazine's film critic, Pure 247 takes you behind the scenes of the birth of a global Christian radio station. Andy B will have you laughing and crying as you discover what it takes to create ministry that matters in this inspiring tale of perseverance, honesty, and vulnerability. Buckle up and get ready for a story that's uplifting as it is entertaining. Behind the microphone, they face bankruptcy, eviction, and 2 life-changing surgeries. Can they make it? Will they make it? Get your copy of this life-changing book today. Pure 247 is available now on Amazon. Andy B is best described as a man after God's own heart, who insists that God's vision and resourcing trump all handicaps.